Being able to show up on dates and keep going in your dating life requires energy. It requires emotional and mental and physical capacity. And one thing I've learned is that protecting that capacity starts with the basics: sleep, movement, and of course, eating well. When I'm depleted and I don't want to think about food at all, I am not showing up as my best self anywhere, including in my relationship. So I've gotten really intentional about removing the things that drain me. And as much as I love cooking, some days I just need to skip it. That's where Factor comes in. These are fully prepared dietitian designed meals that are ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, and cooks. I just pop them in the microwave and eat. It's real food, no shortcuts on quality, lean proteins, colorful veggies, healthy fats, and no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, just the good stuff that your body needs. We recently tried their country herb chicken and potato leek mash that came with corn and zucchini, and this was so good. It's just what I needed after a long day of recording. And I love a meal that's cozy, but also protein forward. And I think a lot of Factor's meals fit the bill. Another one of my favorites is Factor's gochujang salmon with rice and bok choy. This is something I will happily eat every day for the rest of my life. But of course, sometimes it's kind of hard to choose because Factor has over 100 rotating weekly meals, so it never gets repetitive. And if you have specific goals like you want more protein, more fiber, or maybe you're working on strength and recovery, really whatever you're looking to do, there is a collection built for that in Factor. When I am taking care of myself at the basic level, everything gets easier, including showing up as my best self in my relationships. Head to factormeals.com/DI50off and use code DI50off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with a new subscription only while supplies last until September 27th, 2026. See website for more details. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease. Whether you've been dating for a while or you're just starting out, I believe dating can be fun, and I'm here to help you enjoy the process. And you're in for a real treat today. I am bringing back Rikki Cloos for round 2. So Rikki was on the podcast almost 2 years ago. She was one of my first guests, and I will link our original episode below. But if you don't know Rikki, she is the creator behind the Instagram account Anxious Hearts Guide, and she has a book of the same name, Anxious Hearts Guide, that I'll link in the show notes. It's a phenomenal book if you are working through anxious attachment. Rikki's work started as a personal research project to transform her own relationships from rock bottom, and it's grown into one of the most grounded, accessible resources out there for healing insecure attachment. So definitely check out her account and her book, and I know you're going to love this conversation. Today, we're going to hear Rikki break down the communication mistakes that most of us are making without even realizing it, including why the words we say rarely match what we actually mean, and how that gap becomes an issue in relationships. We also get into one of her frameworks for improving communication that has really stuck with me, and I felt so lucky to really get into this framework because she shares it on her account, but you can only get so nuanced on Instagram. We can get so much more nuanced on the podcast. And we also talk about the 7 relationship agreements she has with her husband, why creating physical and emotional safety matters just as much as having the correct words to say, and the hard truth that love alone is not enough to sustain a relationship long term. Plus, we answer a dilemma from a listener who has been in couples therapy for months and is somehow feeling more distant from her partner. As always, I truly, truly love hearing from you, and I just really appreciate you for being here. So if you have any questions or thoughts on this episode, you can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally, drop a comment on Spotify, or shoot me an email. My email is talia@datingintentionallypod.com. And if you prefer to watch these conversations, you can find all of my episodes on YouTube. Just search Dating Intentionally on YouTube and you'll find my channel. All right, let's get to it. Welcome, Rikki, back to the Dating Intentionally podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you again. It's been too long.
It's been way too long. Before we jumped in here, we were just saying how it's been about 2 years. We were both just engaged and now we're both married and different life phase and time to revisit another conversation. I had so much fun last time.
Me too. I mean, and speaking of our last episode, I will link it in the show notes. We talked all about expressing your needs when you have anxious attachment. You shared so much of your journey, which is incredible how like you studied this on your own. You met your now husband and he was avoidant. You were anxious. You had to navigate this all together in what I think is like the scariest way possible. That's like kind of some people's worst case scenario is like, I'm super anxious. My dream person is like super avoidant. How are we going to do this? But you guys did it.
Yeah. I think one of my friends put it in such a great way when he said, he was like, you play video games on hard mode, don't you? And I was like, I do. And when I met Chris, I just knew that we had our work cut out for us, but in a way that was really going to help us grow. And it has big time. I think I like that more than an easy thing,
It's rewarding. And I was going to say the best part is that we all have reaped the benefits of your lessons on your amazing account, Anxious Hearts Guide, which everyone should go follow right now because it's incredible. I love the work you do so much.
I appreciate that. It's been a serious labor of love. And I've been following you for a really long time too. I think your account is my absolute favorite when folks are dating. I always send them straight to you. Yep.
Before we get into your amazing content, I do have a question because you talk to people all day who are in relationships dealing with attachment. But what do you think are the most common communication mistakes people are making, especially with attachment issues in the mix?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, lately, what I've been reading about a lot has been communication. And I really think the biggest thing is that we're not saying what we think we're saying. And that's what I've been posting about a lot because I think that's been the root of many, many of my arguments and of the arguments that folks come to me to talk to about. We think we know what we're communicating to our partner, but many times we're attacking them. We're saying things that are making them defensive. And once we figure out kind of how to actually say what we need to say, it really stops a lot of fights before they start. And that's been more exciting than attachment theory to me lately.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of posts about it, which we'll get into it. So basically what you're saying is we're not thinking a lot or reflecting a lot before we speak. And we are not really aware of how it's landing. And I think when I look at your content, it's also like, we're not even sure what we're really getting at.
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. I noticed that I'm my own best experiment. This is where I run all my experiments right here in my head and in my own relationship. And it seems like, if I do a lot of speaking without thinking, sometimes I don't even know what I want to communicate. And it's just all my underlying stuff coming out in a very attacking way at my partner.
I'm trying to think of an example of this, like from a recent conversation I had with my husband or something. Because I would say half the time we do really well with this. Like this isn't really as much of an issue because we both work on it so much. And awesome. Half the time we're horrible. So
yeah, 50% doesn't sound bad though. Honestly, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'll take it. But I'm just trying to think of an example. Like if I was going to say, are you mad at me?
Right.
Which is a pretty common one I know appears on your page. What do you think if someone is like, are you mad at me? What are they really saying?
Well, first I want to validate all the folks who hop on my page enraged that I might be saying that they're not allowed to ask if someone's mad at them. Of course you can ask if somebody is mad at you guys. I don't want anybody thinking that I mean you can't use that phrase. But a lot of the times, are you mad at me is really just, it's less of a conscious, intentional check-in with our partner about how they're doing. And it's more our anxiety leading the way, making assumptions, checking the temperature in a very fearful way that's not intentional and grounded. And so, I mean, that's how I usually use "Are you mad at me?" And it doesn't work well at all. It actually makes my partner defensive. It feels more disconnecting than anything.
Yeah, you're right. It's coming from a place of like, Oh yeah, where is that coming from? Where like why
Mhm.
would someone say, "Are you mad at me?" Where is it? What's the root of it?
Totally, totally. And if you can ask yourself that before you ask, "Are you mad at me?" you might find that that might not be the best question to lead with, you know?
What would be a better one?
Well, I guess it depends on the scenario, right? If you can look at your partner's day and objectively say, whoa, they've had a terrible day, or they didn't get any sleep last night, or something awful's going on with family or work, you might find that it actually really makes sense why they would be off or crabby or quiet, you know? It's our anxious brain that's going to make us immediately worry that we're the problem and we're the cause. But if we can take a step back and just take a minute and just look at our partner's overall world, we might be able to figure out without bringing anything up at all, oh my gosh, it actually makes a lot of sense why they would be in kind of a funk right now. So are you mad at me would not be the best question to ask. In that case, after careful reflection, I might say, hey, I noticed you've really been going through a lot. Is there anything I can do for you to take some of that off your shoulders right now? That's a question, but that's not led by fear, right? And it's a very connecting question. And it's a question that'll make your partner feel very seen and loved, I think.
That's amazing. And you know what? Like when you say it, Rikki, it sounds so simple. It's like, oh, let me just think about it. But bringing it back to our listeners who keep falling into the mistake of blurting stuff out or just kind of their intentions are good. They're trying to check in, right? But they just don't know what to say. What's a step they could take to kind of move away from the anxiety-led communication more to a better question or something to say?
Well, I know it does sound easy to say just take a minute before you bring something up. But I think the practice of checking in with ourselves before we come to our partner with something, it takes practice, but the more we do it, the more automatic it'll seem, especially when you're feeling fearful. That should be like a call to yourself. Okay, I feel a lot of fear right now. My impulse is to run to my partner to have them fix it, but I'm going to take the first step with myself. And honestly, it's way easier said than done. It's taken me years to do this and I still mess up sometimes. But for the most part, if I can ask myself some of those good questions before I put it on his plate, the conversations go a lot better in general. So just practice.
Yeah. Well, at what point in your relationship did you realize like, oh, I need to do this? Like, how does someone know they need to work on it? Or like, tell me a little about how your process with improving your communication.
Yeah. Unfortunately for like the regular people listening to this, my process was just all the psychology reading that I was doing around anxious attachment. That's the kind of thing that led me to say to myself, whoa, I can't necessarily trust my thoughts to lead me into the right actions or phrases. If you're finding that your words are the first thing that are happening before big fights, that might be a sign too that you might need to look at the way that you lead into things. That's going to be tough because everything in your brain is probably going to tell you that your partner's really defensive. Your partner doesn't want to talk about things. But if there's somebody who cares about you and wants to be with you, chances are they would like a good conversation. But we might be, lobbing a grenade into that situation before they even open their mouth,
That's such a hard truth that I think everyone listening probably needs to sit with for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so true.
I found it empowering though, personally, to realize that it was me, that it was largely me. And that meant that there was something that I could do about it. And it also meant that there might be this part of my partner that actually wants to engage in this dialogue if I can start the ball rolling in a positive direction.
That is really empowering. And also when you said, I can't really trust myself to start these conversations in a good way, given the history, given what has happened in the past, that also is a hard conversation to have with yourself. Mm-hmm. And you're not saying like, oh, I'm not trustworthy. I can't trust my brain. It's like, okay, the path I've taken over and over just keeps leading me to this place I don't want to be. Let's try something different.
Totally. I love how gentle that sounds. I hope it didn't come off as too like shaming. I don't mean to shame myself into change.
I like hearing your actual thought process because I think it's interesting to hear how different people talk to themselves. We never get to hear that. So I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that internal self-dialogue, I'm big in that one too. That's an interesting topic.
I mean, that tracks. So, okay. On your page, you have been posting lately these really interesting communication breakdowns, and I'll link this one in the show notes, but here's an example of what you do. So for people listening, I'll just describe it, but you should definitely go click on it so you can see what I'm talking about. But it's basically a video of you and Chris talking, and the text there's like a column that says it's like what you said, what you meant, how it landed, like what they heard, and then what to say instead. It's like these 4 columns. Here's an example of one. So you wrote what you said. I shouldn't have to ask for what I need. That's like me saying that to my partner. I shouldn't have to ask for what I need. What I may have meant was asking for what I need feels like I'm forcing you to do it. Okay, that's kind of the feeling underneath. And then what they may have heard would be like, I need you to read my mind because I'm not going to tell you what I need because I shouldn't have to ask you.
Right.
And then finally, you write what to say instead would be like, hey, can we talk about what we want more from each other so that we can make more of an effort to do that this week? That's just an example of the steps of these posts. And you have like a bunch of them. And I hope that description was good for you, listener.
Yeah, I hope that worked for them too. It definitely is maybe easier to understand visually, but I think you did a great job, Talia.
Okay, but my question for you though is, how did you come up with this framework?
Honestly, I'm my own muse. I pay attention to the things that I'm saying that aren't necessarily landing. And that's a great place for inspiration because I know intimately what I actually wanted to say underneath it. And I have an awesome partner whom I can ask about how he may have heard something. And then I'm in a program right now, a master's in communication program. So I am learning how to phrase things nonviolently and assertively. So I've got a little bit of education and training now in ways that we can say things that might actually land.
That's awesome. So that's amazing that you're going deeper into studying this. That's so cool. And I love this framework because it really does just so clearly break down what can feel in the moment to be really confusing because so much gets lost in the air between me and my partner. Like when we're having these conversations, it's like, it's hard. It's not tangible. We can't see it. But then when you lay it out like that on an Instagram post, it's like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love the most about Instagram and TikTok, social media in general. There's a lot that I hate about it, but one of the things that I absolutely love is its ability to show us what's actually happening, the complexity behind what feel like very simple, cut and dried interactions with each other. There's actually a lot going on underneath.
So is the advice then like based on these posts, based on these breakdowns, this framework, if I want to say, I shouldn't have to ask you for what I need, you should just know. If I want to say it to my partner, is the advice to like just pause and be like, what do I actually feel? Like, what is the action between the two first steps in the framework?
Yeah, I love that question because I feel like that's something that I could maybe communicate better to my audience. I think the most important first step that you can take is before you even open your mouth, sitting with yourself and getting real honest and clear with yourself about what it is that you actually need. We tend to lead with a pointed finger and saying, you never, you don't, right? The focus being on what our partner isn't doing or isn't giving us, when really the best place to start would be looking at what our actual needs are, what would actually make life feel more wonderful and joyful for us. So when we can communicate a request, something that they can give us or something that we need that we don't have, they're less likely to feel deficient or attacked, I think. So that would be the best first step. Figure out what you actually need. My hero, Marshall Rosenberg, writes in his book, Nonviolent Communication, that the best way to figure out what you need is by not looking at the other person. Don't use the word you. Literally just look at yourself isolated and talk to yourself about what would feel good, what you need in the absence of all other people, right? You may think that you need your husband to pick up his dirty socks off the floor, but see how that's leading with a you. What you actually need is a clean space so that you can think and relax. That's what I need. That has nothing to do with anyone else. And I can communicate that without making the other person feel deficient. Hey, it makes me feel really good when I'm in a clean space. I work better. I just function better. I was wondering if you can help me out with that. And that would be received a lot better than saying, you always leave your socks on the floor. The room is disgusting. Why do you do this in here? You can hear, you can feel how different those two are.
As you were talking, I was just thinking about how most advice for people I bring on the podcast to talk about things like this, the answer is usually turn inward. The answer is usually pretend your partner doesn't exist, for a second, and to tune into yourself, look, like kind of hold that mirror up. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do when you are really fixated on your partner's behavior, how they're not showing up, they're not doing enough work, they're not putting enough effort, they're showing you they don't care, whatever. Yeah. It's really hard to kind of tune that one down, tune that voice down, and tune into what do I actually need, though, regardless of my partner.
Totally. It can feel impossible sometimes, especially if it really, truly seems like they're the reason that your world is not feeling good right now. It might feel like forcing them or requesting an action from them that they don't want to do is the only way to make your world better. But I really pride myself too on being creative with the ways that I can make my world better without forcing anybody to do anything. That's been a fun experiment that's made my life a lot better.
Can you say more? What's an example?
Yeah. I think, most of the things that seem to bother me in my life come from other people and what I wish that they would do. But when we try to let go of that impulse, if we just tell ourselves, I truly can't control anyone else or the things that they can do, that forces us to get real creative about how we might make our world better and happier, taking our own actions. It's a boundaries thing as well. You can't control other people. So what can I do for myself in this moment to help fix this problem that doesn't require me to put puppet strings on anyone or put them in a cage,
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a great reminder. Mm-hmm. Okay, now here's a question. I asked my listeners for some questions for you. And the one thing that the thread with all the questions was around struggling with vulnerability in communication, because it feels so high stakes when you're in a relationship, you've been dating forever, and you finally get into this relationship. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to say the wrong thing, but communication is important because you listen to this podcast. So what do you do? What do you say to someone who, like, every time they try to speak up, speak their truth, they choke up and start crying?
Yeah. Well, let me say, I know intimately how that feels because that's been me for most of my life. The way out of that for me has been to develop a really strong feeling that I'm going to be okay no matter what. And boy, isn't that easier said than done. I know that's like the ultimate easier said than done.
This is the theme of the episode.
It absolutely is. Just go ahead and title it that right now. But truly, I really feel like if I feel good about my ability to take care of myself, no matter how they respond, that's the magical key that allows me to say anything. And if I can give a little bit more practical, easy advice, I like to preface things that are very difficult for me to say with, this is very difficult for me to talk about, because that's the kind of statement that really opens up the listener too. That makes them pause and sit down and go, wow, this person's about to lay something on me that's really hard and heavy for them. It kind of opens them up vulnerably too. So that's my practical step. And my impractical step is really just to, it's a shoring up of the self-esteem and the self-efficacy. Is that the right word for that? Like, you're feeling that truly you're going to stand by yourself and get yourself through that situation, even if the worst case scenario takes place and you say, hey, I need this thing. And they say, forget it, the relationship's off. That's too much to ask for. That was the last straw. The worst thing that you can think of possibly happening. Right. If you can imagine yourself taking care of yourself through that, then the door is wide open for you to say whatever you need to someone.
I love that advice of, remembering you're going to be okay and saying, hey, this is hard for me to talk about. For me, I definitely still, even my husband, who is amazing at this stuff. Like he's always very receptive, and he can get defensive, but he'll always listen to me. He's never gonna, he'll
Yeah.
invite me to talk about my emotions if he can tell I'm feeling emotional. And sometimes he can tell before I can tell, which is wild. But I will cry anyway. I think it's okay. It's okay to just, you can let the tears come and take a minute. And it feels awkward sometimes, but at least it kind of passes, and then you can talk.
Totally. And practice with that. Nobody ever wants to hear that either, but I'm still having conversations with my husband. We're 7 years in now together in a relationship, and I'll still find myself crying sometimes when I need to bring up something that's hard to request or talk about, because those old brain pathways that tell me that it's not safe to ask for the things that I want are very old and very well worn, and I'm probably not going to find my way out of them anytime soon, but it is easier than it used to be. And that's really all I can ask for, is just hopefully it gets a little bit better every year.
It's so true. What are some other tips you have for people who maybe it's not crying, but there's other discomfort they feel with the vulnerability? They really want to work on this and get this, but they just feel like, I'm so scared to even bring up anything. Yeah. What are some of your advice?
The very unsexy advice would be weekly check-ins and weekly meetings.
We love weekly check-ins here.
Aren't they great? Right?
Yeah.
Where the specific purpose of it is to bring things up. And granted, that's not going to be something that you're going to look forward to, but it does force you as a couple to practice that. And it provides a space for talking about things instead of having to muster up all that courage and lay it on somebody, surprise them. In that moment for that meeting, okay, this is where we practice talking about difficult things. So
I'm going to push back on one thing you said. And that is, I think it can be something you look forward to if you make it something to look forward to.
That's very sweet.
Johnny and I, we have our bi-weekly check-in. We call them Negroni meetings. We used to make Negronis in the beginning because it was a little harder for us to get into it. And that's what we called them, because we would have these drinks, and we love them. It reminds us of our time in Italy together, which was our first trip. So we had this positive affiliation with the check-ins, and now we don't do that. But that's just an example of you can make it fun. And we also talk about positive things too.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for saying that. Right. I know, because there's going to be some people who are dreading it, and there's probably going to be some people listening who are going, that sounds really nice. I would really love that.
Yeah. I think most of my listeners really want to have check-ins, but there's fear around even bringing up check-ins. What if they don't go for that? What if they shut it down? What do we do? And I guess this is kind of a little off topic, but what would you suggest for a couple where check-ins are no, but they still want to practice?
Totally. That's not off topic. I think that's a great thing to talk about. My partner would be the type that would say check-ins, no, thank you. And that doesn't make him a bad partner. It's just, for some people, sitting face to face while you discuss things like that sound terrible. Right. So, for he and I, being a couple that is a little more resistant to a structured weekly sit down, we have our daily dog walks. I think I talk about that on the account sometimes too. We are not required to talk about anything in particular on our dog walks, but they're very long. And so, for a 3 to 5 mile walk, that's a lot of time next to somebody having to think up things to say. So inevitably, the conversation ebbs and flows, but things that we need or are bothering us do come up on those regularly. And also, we're kind of having fun. We both love to hike. We love getting the dog outside. I live in Alaska. He loves it a little more than I do when the weather's really cold. But finding something fun that you both enjoy to do together that's also conducive to conversation and that you do regularly together, that can be a great place. It can become your weekly meeting without actually being a labeled weekly meeting.
I work from home, and in California, the weather is actually starting to get nice. So every time it's beautiful and sunny out, I'm kicking myself thinking, why am I not outside sitting in my yard working? And so this spring, I am determined to set up our outdoor space so I can actually work outside, eat outside, and just exist outside. And Way Day at Wayfair could not have come at a better time. It's happening April 25th through the 27th, and it's the best home sale of the year, up to 80% off with free shipping on everything: furniture, decor, outdoor, home improvement, all of it. I've been using Wayfair to slowly make our home feel more like us, and the outdoor space is that last frontier. I want to set up where I can get my laptop out in the morning, have my coffee, and actually enjoy the California weather that I've been completely ignoring. What I love about shopping at Wayfair is how easy it is to narrow things down. You can filter by style, size, price, all of it, so that you're not drowning in options that don't work for you. And I always look for Wayfair verified pieces, which means their team has done a 10-point quality inspection on the item. And when you're buying furniture online, that really helps. Wayday is the sale to shop the best deals in home. We're talking up to 80% off with fast and free shipping on everything. Head to wayfair.com April 25th through the 27th to shop Wayday. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Some green flags I've been thinking a lot about lately are if they text back promptly, if they can actually make a plan, if they really listen, and if they have fresh, crisp sheets and bedding. You know, assuming you make it far enough into dating someone to know their bedding situation. The right sheets, blankets, and comforters can make such a big impact on the quality of your sleep, and I've noticed right away when we upgraded our bed with Boll and Branch. They make everything your bed needs. Their signature cotton sheets, pillows, blankets, and comforters are all designed to be breathable, incredibly soft, and they actually get better over time. We started with their signature sheet set and the waffle blanket, and I will fully admit I am a blanket hog. Johnny has no chance. It is just that cozy. Getting out of bed in the morning was already hard enough, and now it's basically impossible because this bedding from Boll and Branch is just so comfy. What I love about Boll and Branch, other than the quality, is how their bedding gets softer with each wash. I also love that they have so many chic color options. Speaking of green flags, we went with a sage green waffle blanket that brightened up our bedroom and gave it a fresher look. Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/dating with code DATING. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/dating, code DATING to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Did you ever say to Chris, like, I want to talk about our relationship during these walks, or did it just happen naturally?
Yeah, it just happened naturally. I knew in the very beginning of our relationship, I hate to even admit this, I made him take an attachment test because I was
you've said this on the last episode.
Yeah, I was less experienced back then. I don't recommend doing that to anyone. Don't do that, everybody. But he took the test and he tested as avoidant as he could possibly be. So that's not the kind of person that you want to say, I would like to have a weekly discussion about the relationship. That's going to be really confrontational for a more avoidant, distant type of partner. So instead, hey, there's a thing that we really like to do that's really fun. Let's make it a regular thing. And it just happens to be a thing that's also a place where we can both talk.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate this, everyone listening, if you're like, I never want to date an avoidant, avoidants are the plague. Like, no, you can make it work in so many ways. Like, people with avoidant attachment are humans who also want to connect. You just have to find the right avenue for that, and they will do it.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Also, to anyone listening who may still, if they're like, I'm unconvinced, Talia, I hate avoidance. My husband is now the one who brings stuff like that up more often than I do. So it's kind of neat. A rehabilitated avoidant attacher, sometimes when they work through those issues, can really become the person who really realizes that they love that connection and want to dig into issues even more so than someone who dealt with anxious attachment.
That is so beautiful. I love that. I'm so glad. Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that. Yep. So back to your post, though, I do have one more question. And that is, with these frameworks you share of like what to say instead, where you're like, here's the more aware, the more internally and externally aware thing to say that accounts for both of you and where you might be in life. Is it as simple as just using different words, as flipping the script? Like, is that really all we need to do?
Boy, anything you find on the internet I don't think anything's as simple as the internet says it is. So there's a lot that I've been reading. I still read about attachment stuff, and creating an environment of safety, that feels safe for both partners is a lot more than just words. I mean, words are great. They can maybe be the thing that makes everything feel safe, but sometimes even the right words won't help an environment that already doesn't feel safe, right? I can't really encourage the audience to go read a bunch of Sue Johnson. She's the master in the
yes,
safety.
we can.
Oh, well, we could. Okay. If you're a reader and if you're listening and you're a reader, Sue Johnson is big into safety. Everything that she wrote about that would be helpful, but it is kind of high level stuff.
It is very high level. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a whole lot that we can do with our partner to cultivate an environment of safety. And that's the kind of thing that's going to naturally make the words flow a little bit better and less attacking. I mean, it's hard to suggest, every relationship's different, but if you're not spending any time touching each other at all, you might just cuddle and watch a movie for a couple hours before you bring up a difficult conversation, because physical touch can create a lot of safety. Gosh, like I said, it's hard suggesting it because everybody's relationship's so different. But for me, we had a lot of physical contact, and the lack of safety was definitely, I was a big part of that problem with words. It's funny, Chris is less with the words that are problematic, and for him it's more, I hate to even say this, I feel like I'm talking trash.
We like Chris, he's great.
I know, okay, that's true. The audience is definitely into Chris. It's more his tone, I think. Like his words can be good, but then he'll still have a tone that lets me know that he's really upset. And so tone, sarcasm or indirectness, that kind of thing can make a conversation feel really unsafe, even if the words are right. So those are just a couple of really big things that you might want to consider. You can have all the right words, but if there's no hugging or cuddling ever, and if your tone is off, the right words won't matter. You've got to have a couple of those other pieces in place, I think, or at least working on them.
Well, that answer really leads us into the next part, which I really am excited to get into, which is your rules for your relationship, which I think also contributes to creating safety and building. So let's talk about that. So Rikki, you shared these rules many times on your page, and I want to just say what they are really quick. 1, no topic is off limits. 2, talk about hurt instead of letting it build. 3, no texting during conflict. Talks happen in person only. 4, if it hurts you, I'll take it serious. What?
That's my favorite one. The no texting. About serious
I mean,
stuff.
Personally, we never text fight. We also just don't text that much. I just could never see that happening. But yeah. 4, if it hurts you, I'll take it seriously. 5, never use space to ignore a fight, cool down and come back. 6, our needs are different. They're not wrong or too much. And 7, work to stay connected even when you feel like running. Yeah. So these are amazing rules.
Thank you.
What made you realize that you even needed this?
I think as a writer, I'm always looking to get the best, juiciest stuff I can that'll help people into the smallest amount of space. And a list of rules did that really well. I sat and I thought of the most important things that did create safety in my relationship. And these are all things that he and I discuss regularly, but having them written down and rules is such a tough word. Agreements is a better word, but it's too long for social media.
Guideline. Yeah. Like agreements. That makes sense. Cause it's like both of you are in agreement on what it takes to make your relationship healthy and safe.
Absolutely. We're both totally bought in on all of these. And these are the things that he and I personally can't do without. Now, I'm not saying that those universally apply to everyone. Usually people really hate the no texting about serious stuff rule. Some people are really into text fights, I guess. But
I think some people will say, due to other factors, that they communicate better in text in these hard conversations. And I think in some cases, I have definitely heard of people I know writing long emails to each other instead of texting, which I think is better than texting because it's
agree.
like slower. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Sure. So I guess I'm just saying that those rules aren't universal to everyone, but they're incredibly helpful for me in my relationship, and anything that helps me that much will probably help some other people somewhat. So that's the goal.
The one rule that sticks out to me is something like where I think about my relationship is number 7, work to stay connected even when you feel like running. That is something that I do, but I really struggle with as someone who was leaning more avoidant.
Yeah, I bet.
In my years growing up and everything, like I feel myself wanting to leave the room, stop talking about this, just walk away, and I really, but in those moments, it's like I'm working against gravity. I have to like reach for Johnny's hand and I'm like, I'm going to hold his hand. I'm just going to be here, but it's so hard.
Totally. I hope I didn't say this on our last meeting because it's just something that stood out so much. Stan Tatkin said that when he and his wife are in a fight, they try to still touch toes at night in bed. And I love that so much. The idea that you can just be seething mad at somebody, but you still have that one little physical reminder that I'm still with you. I still care about you. Even if I'm still mad, like we're still a team.
Yeah, we go to bed mad, but we'll kiss and say, I love you, like we do every single night.
Totally. Same. We do that too. Yeah. Even it doesn't matter how mad we are, we still say it. So
yeah, 100%. So that's, which rule for you is like, do you think is the one that was the hardest for you to follow in the past?
Well, not the last one. As an anxious attacher, when the stuff hits the fan, my tendency is to connect. I think the toughest one for me, this is hard to admit, but the idea that, oh gosh, look at my brain shutting down. I don't even want to say it. If it hurts you, it matters to me. Sometimes it's really hard to care about the thing that hurts them. And I know that sounds really cold, but a lot of the stuff that bothers our partner is not stuff that bothers us at all. In fact, it might be stuff that we like or we want, and they don't want it at all. Some of those are even some of Gottman's 69% of unsolvable problems. Like they're just differences that the both of you have. So the toughest rule for me is to try to care or find care in things that I don't care about that really matter to him a lot. That's been tough. That's an ongoing battle, but I have found
I appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, because I hate saying stuff like that. But I do find that when I can dig down and I can find some empathy or care for at least how he feels about it, even if the issue itself isn't something that bothers me, it makes a huge difference. Just when he feels heard and understood.
That's the touch point that you can always have no matter what he's bringing up, because you care about him, you care about his feelings, you want him to not be feeling negatively about whatever it is. Like you're on the same team, you're in the same boat on that. So at least that's always accessible to you, even if you're like, I don't get it. I feel like my husband goes through that a lot with me. He's like, because I have a lot of money stress and he doesn't. He's a very much like, money doesn't matter. Well, and I'm like, right. I literally, that's actually a phrase that we've banned from our conversations because it makes me so, it just sets us off into a spiral. So like with that, he knows I get stressed about it. He doesn't agree. He doesn't care the same way as me, but he knows it really bothers me. So he like knows how to handle it with me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you guys banned the phrase. That's so sweet.
Well, we've learned since reading Hold Me Tight and going through some of Sue Johnson's work that sometimes the pattern, if you find the trigger, if you kind of like remove that, you can find a different pattern that's better.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Kudos to you guys too, finding that and being able to say that phrase right there. That's getting in the way of us connecting and talking about this.
Yeah, immediately puts me on the defensive.
Like, totally.
So now we'll say it jokingly to each other, and
understandably so. Just saying, there's anything. I mean, for your listeners, if there is something that bothers you intensely, but it doesn't bother your partner, you're not wrong to be bothered by that. just want to give people that reassurance. And for the partner that's going, why are they upset by that? It makes sense why it doesn't bother you too. The tricky part is having a conversation together where both people are sensitive to the fact that you're different, but you need to work as a team to figure out something that works.
Yeah, really well said. And one thread that I'm noticing, like with your work and this whole conversation, is something that you've talked about, which is love isn't enough. You need tools. So I've seen that phrase pop up on your feed as well.
Totally.
What are the tools?
Well, obviously, I'm going to say communication for one. It's a huge tool.
All of it, all of everything we're talking about, like the whole
healthy communication.
enchilada.
Specifically, okay. I almost don't care how much two people love each other if we're talking about the long-term success of the relationship. If they can't talk about difficult things or share what's on their heart or make an effort to care about things that they don't really care about, they're in big trouble from a longevity standpoint.
Can I ask for clarification? Like, what if you do talk about it, but you're bad at it?
Oh, you can get better. You can practice. Yeah. I was the queen of being bad at communication. I'm very wordy, but that doesn't mean that I was doing a good job when I was younger. And honestly, even for as much as I read now, I mess it up a lot now. If that tool of yours in your tool belt is exceptionally dull, sharpening your communication and learning how to be more direct and more empathetic, and a better listener, that's part of communication as well. Those are things that are going to trump love every single time, I think.
Yeah, I love that. What other tools do you think are necessary? Love is not enough.
Yeah, I think the tool of introspection is really incredibly important. I've seen a lot of relationships, and I've personally been in relationships that have ended because of a lack of introspection. If one or both people aren't willing to look at themselves and how they're showing up, that's a big problem and maybe an unworkable problem sometimes. So introspection is a massive tool. Gosh, now I'm blanking because those ones are so good.
We have some great tools to work with already from what you're saying. And
yeah,
I think it's important to talk about because so many of us have been taught that love is enough, that love conquers all, that, right. that will carry you through. But the truth is it's not. And it's like totally. you could be so in love with someone, but if you don't have the tools you need in your toolbox, you're never going to be able to make it work long term.
Absolutely. You look at family relationships too, right? Especially the love between a mother and a child. As a parent, I know how deeply I love my son. I can't imagine a love greater. I'd literally sacrifice myself for him. But if I talk to him in unkind ways or indirect ways, despite that love, I could wreck my relationship with my child, and that's a great example of why love is absolutely not enough. We still need to be competent, kind communicators who care about what matters to the other person as well.
I love that answer, and I really appreciate everything you've shared so far. Are you ready to get into our listener dilemma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll get into it. All right, so I have a dilemma. By the way, if you're listening, you can submit your dilemma in the show notes below. There's a little Ask Me a Question link, and I answer them on every single episode. So thank you for submitting. All right, Rikki, here we go. I'm 34. I've been with my boyfriend, 41, for nearly 2 years. We moved in together 6 months ago and started couples therapy at the same time. We've both been committed to the work, but we've actually grown more distant. Resentment is building. I feel unseen and exhausted. He's everything I wanted on paper, which makes it heartbreaking that we can't shift these patterns. Should I give him more time?
My first initial reaction is that we don't have enough information here. And that's not to say that two people going to therapy are just magically going to solve everything that goes wrong. I think what I would encourage that person to do, it sounds like they don't have a whole lot of self-trust around whether or not they're able to decide how long they can wait and how much they can take. That's important work to do as well. I think we have to know what kind of things we can give some slack and leeway for and what kind of things are deal breakers, right? If this person it truly is absolutely wonderful and fulfilling a lot of her needs and feeling great for her to be around, I think the issues that are making her go, gosh, can this work? She needs to get really clear with herself on whether or not those are deal breakers or not. That's going to be different for absolutely everybody. I worry that she might be falling into the trap of thinking that a relationship worth staying in is an easy one that doesn't have any problems, because all relationships, literally anybody that she could possibly be with, is going to have some areas that make her say, can I really handle this or not? And that's up to her to decide.
That's a great point. And what stood out to me on this is she said, we've both been committed to the work, but we've actually grown more distant. And I thought that was really interesting of like, okay, we don't have the details, so we don't know what that looks like for this couple. But I think that is telling of like, sometimes I think in relationships, when you do work on yourself, you can figure out that you're with the wrong person.
Yes, absolutely. You can.
So I'm wondering if there's some of that happening potentially. And in terms of resentment, it's like, I also am like, okay, you just moved in together. I can see how that transition and adjustment could lead to resentment if you don't have the tools, as we were saying, to actually speak up when you start feeling that resentment creeping in, which is something I know I've worked on a lot. And I'm so lucky, not lucky, I worked hard on this to not have resentment creep into my relationship at all, because we just talk about it. But to her question, should I give it more time? This is like a dangerous question. As I picked this for you because I know you and Chris worked on so much together. Were there moments where you were like, how much time do I give this?
Many moments like that.
Okay. What did you tell yourself in those moments?
Yeah. Well, luckily I have a lot of really smart friends, friends who are as weird about psychology as I am. And one of my favorite friends, she told me that she gave me that exact advice, that I need to get clear with myself on what kind of things are deal breakers and what kind of things aren't. And when I encounter a true deal breaker, which should be a really big issue, not something small, when I encounter a true deal breaker, I need to be able to stand by myself with the willingness to walk away if that comes up. And with the issues that I've decided aren't deal breakers, I need to be able to stand by myself and say, this is something that I've resolved to work through with my partner. It's very easy to just throw everything into the bucket of, this is hard and I'm going to leave. And for anxious folks, it's very easy to throw everything into the I'm staying no matter what bucket. But we need to have those need to be two separate things. And we need to be really clear with ourselves about what those issues are. They're different for everybody as well, too.
So the piece about the timing, though, it's like, do you think there's a benefit to being like, okay, we're going to give it our all for 6 months or 3 months or a month?
Well, but that also feels like an answer that feels personal to me. For me, I am very glad that I stuck around and waited. I didn't see any of my deal breaker issues present. And so I resolved to stick around for 6 months to a year, seeing how I could do with the things that were hard, but not deal breakers.
Were you living together at the time?
Were we? Well, and honestly, this happened when we weren't living together, and it happened after we moved in as well. Both of those times.
Yeah, right. I'm just curious because I feel like when you're living with someone, the stakes feel higher because you have chosen to further integrate your lives. You're sharing a home, you're sharing finances and other things. So it's like this, I can see the urgency in our question because living together makes a difference in this question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Even being married, that might pop up for some people. You might have married and reproduced with that person and still have thoughts every now and then going, oh my gosh, can I handle this? Should I leave or should I stick around for 6 months to a year to see if I can handle these issues? But truly, my commitment to deciding that I was going to give it my best shot with the issues. They're not deal breakers. They're just hard. I'm going to put all my effort in for 6 months to a year to see if I really can handle this. That kind of commitment really pushed me a heck of a lot farther than if I didn't have the commitment to that time period. So for me personally, that was helpful.
I know this is great, and hearing your personal experiences is really helpful because it's just people, there's no cut and dry answer to this, but I really love the advice of defining your deal breakers very clearly, which is the big stuff that you know for sure you will never be able to work with, and then committing to spending X amount of time on the rest, on just working through that and accepting it, resolving it, whatever it is.
Yeah. And my dear friend too, who gave me the advice, said also, when that time period comes to an end, it's really important that you are very honest with yourself about the level of change that you see, right? If you reach that 6 months or a year and there's absolutely no change or it's gotten worse, you need to be able to trust yourself to make a good decision for yourself during that time. That can be really hard to do. Or the 6 months to a year comes up and you say, okay, I've seen this much change. Is this much change enough change for me to, or enough progress, I should say, to add a little bit more time onto it? It's tough. Those conversations
really
with
tough.
yourself are
and
tough.
I really appreciate this person writing in. I hope this answer helped. And Rikki, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom again for round 2. Where can we get more of you?
Anxious Heart's Guide, or searching for Rikki Cloos. It's tough to spell, but Cloos. My books are on Amazon or on my website. And I write free stuff almost every single day on my Instagram page. So I love
amazing.
building my community
it's
there.
Truly incredible. So thank you so much, Rikki.
Well, thank you. And I'll see you next time. Talia, these are so much fun. I will be on anytime.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I loved this conversation so much. What did you think? What are your biggest takeaways? I want to know. Drop a comment below if you're listening on Spotify, or shoot me a DM on Instagram. Personally, I loved Rikki's point that we're not saying what we think we're saying. We go into these hard conversations with good intentions, but sometimes our anxiety takes the wheel and what comes out sounds like an accusation instead of a need or a request. So just knowing that is a game changer. It kind of shifts the question from why won't my partner listen to me, or is my partner hearing me, to how do I actually say what I mean? What's below the surface of what I'm saying? I also really appreciated her reminder that the right words won't save an environment that doesn't feel safe. Words are a part of it, but so is physical touch, tone, and the general culture that you're building together every day. You can say all the right things and still have the conversation fall flat if that foundation of trust and love isn't there. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for trusting me. And don't forget, you are doing great. And if you know someone who's been struggling to communicate in their relationship or keeps having the same fight on repeat, send them this episode. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify means the world. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.